Hey guys, we are Huang,
And Heiko, and we are the Essence of Truth podcast.
which is all about the freedom and happiness that everybody wants but do not know how to get.
And today we want to talk about the standards we're having, why we need standards, how they're impacting us, and we want to talk about different kind of areas they apply based on all the experiences that we made ourselves or with the people that we met. So we talk about food standards, relationship boundaries. We talk about holidays with traditions and everything. And might be some surprises here or there based on the experiences that we made, especially also with personal development events and seminars. And so today we really want to dive deep into it. And as always, we want to hear what you have to share, your thoughts, your insights, your questions. Please share them with us because we want to co create this space together with you. With that being said, shall we start?
Oh yeah, we're already starting, bro. Let's do it.
I know you just came from Date with Destiny, Tony Robbins event, and we all know Tony's all about raising your standards. So I'm curious, like, what was your experience like? What is something you took out of this that you want to share with our audience?
Well, it's funny that you should ask. I remember when I was starting the event, right? I started the event with being sick, sick of the stomach flu, like, and I thought I really don't want to miss it, like. And at the last moment, if I were to cancel that, it's gonna take time for other crew members to filling in, and it's not gonna be nice, right? And so I come up with an idea, right? you know um, if I were to, and this idea is not mine in the beginning, when I was talking with one of the crew members from other event, I heard about, he is going to his family, his parents, something, to crew because of certain reason. I think it was lack of space or was too noisy. So with that in mind, I was sick and I thought, you know what? Actually, I could do that. I'm sick. And when I'm going to attend the event that serve like thousands and thousands of people, right, together with an amazing, amazing team, I'm gonna need the strength, and I'm not gonna have the time to take care of the food, so taking care of my own self, right, as we usually do in those events. So what happened next was that I think, you know what? Why don't I go and like change the space? So as we think, so we do, right? And as we do, yeah. So we have think do have. So with that, I then moved to my mom, and I, like I, I had the foods, I had the taking care of, and I'm able to use that momentum and the strength and the energy to serve thousands of people as well, and it's really work. Which is extraordinary experiences. Energy is high, people were happy, and many how do you say it, breakthrough were happening in our rooms, which is yeah yeah.
That is incredible. And I would say like you had a breakthrough as well. And I really want to say I'm so proud of you for like, I mean, I can just imagine if I would, and I have been to those events, but if I would have to crew there and I know 5 days are coming with, 12 hour plus every day and I'm sick, but I have to be there, I have to deliver. I can already imagine my inner voice coming in like, oh, I'm not sure about it. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And maybe I should, get out of something. But like, no, you were holding your standard. And even though it wasn't your idea, but you made a decision to like, wait a minute, I can go to my mom, getting taken care of, getting healthy food, so I get the care that I need, and I can still serve, I can still help people, having breakthroughs, having an amazing event, and play full out, which you did, which to me is a breakthrough in itself, and I think it's also a great lesson that you can take into every other area of life. Next time something happens where the circumstances might be not ideal, and whether the circumstances kind of trying to force you to lower your standard, you're like, wait a minute, I make the decision, I'm holding my standard, and I'm looking into what can I utilize, what are my resources that I can use to keep the standard, or even you know elevate the circumstances, making them better, which you did. And I think this is such a great breakthrough and lesson that we get to share to you guys, because how often do we have this happening in our life? So we're having a plan, we want to do something, but life or something gets in the way, whether it's the disease or whatever kind of things, and we're getting discouraged, or maybe we kind of accommodate, we lower our standards for somebody else or for a situation. And what does it do to us? Like, what are we teaching ourselves, our subconscious, when we do these things, when we lower our standards? That it's not that important, right? But as I find that, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, when you keep your standards, you're making the decision to find a way, and then getting into a space where you think about the possibilities that you have, then you can make the shift. And I think this is so powerful. And I already know what I want to take out of the session today. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, you are so right. Now, as you were sharing, you reminds me of, I don't remember her name, but she was one of the motivational speaker and also the inventor or the maker of Harry Potter, I think. And one of the things she say was, she do the countdown, right? Uh, 3, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she launched herself, right? And no matter what, kicking and screaming, she just go and do it, right? And it reminds me of the decision that we make, right? It is not pushing through that is hard, but it's about the decide. The movement is the decision itself. I remember for many years as I was still using the bicycle, right? And it's very cool. I cycling from my home to the gym, and it take about 1 hour, maybe a little bit longer, and sometimes a little bit shorter, but 1 hour cycling, like up the hill, right, down and up the hill. And it was quite an exercise. So when it's sunny and when it's sunshine or rainbow, then it's okay. But when it's start to storm outside, so now imagine when we're inside the house and we're looking outside, we see the rain pouring down, right, literally pouring down, or the, how to say it, the ice, snow that's become ice that pulling down. That too, it happened here too. And imagine yourself cycling for 1 hour going to the gym. It could get the motivation. It could get like kind of like, ooh, right, for some people. And it does happen with me sometimes too. And that is where the thing, guys, when I step on a bike, right, and cycling and going, then everything else disappear. The only thing that matters is cycling, and the only thing that matters is get to the destination. You don't feel those other things anymore, right? You keep on doing that. And more often when I arrive, and it could be either in the morning, which is where it started, or at night. So it's not just when it's during the day, but the nighttime too. When cycling throughout the storm, going and throughout the storm back home too, make sure that I dress very well. And I remember when I go to the gym, right? It's the standard. Going to the gym, and as I walk inside the gym, right, the water. Now imagine that you just come out from the stove, the water dripping all over, and I'm getting it out, and I'm putting on the other clothing as well, and started training. So the training is not started yet. So it started training, and at the end I did. So yeah, more often than not, we look toward the obstacle. We look toward like, oh, how painful or how hard could it be, until when we're facing it and we're going through them. And instead of focusing on, like how painful and how, like how hard it is, how cold, for my example, or how pain, uh, I remember sometimes I lose the feelings on my on my hand because it's too cold. When we're focusing on that, then we're gonna lose a lot of momentum, right? Focusing on what we want, which is, for me, I want to get better. I want to become stronger. I want to become better. It doesn't matter anymore. So I'm curious, what in your life has you experienced such a thing, or maybe when in your life, right? And if not, yeah.
I can totally relate to this in two different ways. First off, when we lived in Cardiff in the UK, um, I was completely getting around just by bike, right? And so back then I was working as well. So always by bike, and UK weather, lots of rain. It doesn't get too cold, but lots of rain. And so I had many times where I had to, get through it. And I did the same thing where, like, at the beginning I was like, oh no, like, man, now I'm getting wet. But then at the end I was like, okay, so I'm wet. So what? It's water. It's just water, right? I'm having a shower every day. It's just water. And so I shifted then my focus from, like, okay, so why not enjoying it? I'm already wet, so why not enjoying it? And I actually found so much joy and driving through a park, and everything. And it's shifted. It was the same situation, but it became beautiful and made it amazing. And in terms of standards, I simply did, especially when it was about work. I mean, obviously, I can't go completely soaked to my workplace. Then it became standard in terms of having the right clothing that protects my stuff from, so I can be there and not look like, some weirdo. uh, and being able to test. So, like, there comes a standard for the clothing that I wear, so I can keep my standard showing up how I'm showing up at work. Same thing when I used to drive back in Germany, when I worked in a bakery during nighttime. So usually we started at like midnight, 1 a.m. And with my quad, I was driving to work and I remember we had like minus 20, minus 25 degrees. And I got the best gloves you could just get at a time, right? There was no heated gloves that you can get now, but the best ones you could get back then. And still, same thing what you described, like my hands were freezing. And I remember, like, I'm coming there, I'm on the parking space, and I couldn't even let go of the handle, so I kind of just like slipped off, and I was walking like a kangaroo to the. Good thing though, I worked in the bakery, so I could go right in the front of the oven and just like letting it melt away. But same thing, shifting focus. But like I could complain, oh, now it's so cold, and then finding excuses or something like that. But I was like, no, I'm doing this, making the decision to go after it and focus on who I'm becoming along the way, because this is such a challenge. Nobody is insane driving with an open vehicle at minus 25 degrees through the snow, right, along the way. But I did. And so even later when challenges came up and, like weather became uncomfortable, I could remind myself of like, wait a minute, I did that back then. This is nothing. And this is why the decision, that's why I'm celebrating you so much for what you shared with the event and your stomach flu, because you did it. And now whenever something comes up, you can remind yourself of the same thing, like, this happened, I did it, this is nothing, or this is just another challenge, right? And so I find, because I heard, especially Tony Robbins, all the quotes and stuff like, raise your standards and stuff like that. I hear it all the time. But back then I didn't fully understand until I really dived deep into the topic. And it made me realize that standards are important everywhere. Coming to your stomach flu, right? Food standards. Like, to me, never really occurred to be too important, because in Germany we have extremely high standards for food. You don't even need to think about it. It's extremely rare that you would come across something, that's really in a bad kind of place. But I've been traveling for 8.5 years around the globe now, and I've seen different things. let's just call it.
Yeah.
And surprisingly to see, like, I mean, here in Vietnam, obviously, you come from here.
I
But,
know.
like, sometimes when they chop the meat at like 35 degrees outside Celsius outside, and they're chopping the meat, and it's just lying on the bench, uncooled, nothing, for an entire day, and they're just selling it from their living room or something like that. Different kind of standard. Surprisingly, though, until yesterday, I never had a problem here. Yesterday, I had something where, like, I thought it's good. Mine wasn't the case, but was just a minor little issue. But for instance, something where I really got aware of food standards was when I went to Canada. I was so surprised about it, because you would think, like, like, first world country, everything fine and great. But I found, from my experience, especially with Germany and other countries, the standard there was pretty low, especially for the price they charge. So I don't know if that's about because of economy happening right now, because I can see there's a kind of cycle happening where, like, things getting too expensive. You still need to make money as business, so you're trying to make the best out of the ingredients that you have, but might not always be the healthiest solution. Not saying anyone is doing this. Can just imagine happening just from a survival mind kind of thing, where we start thinking about, okay, I need to save my business. I need to put food on the table for my family, so I need to find a way. And this is how I imagined it to happen in my hallucination. But anyway, like, it happened, and I got severe food poisoning, so much that I almost had to go to the hospital, like cramps, shivering, everything. I thought I was dying. Like, my whole body, every muscle in my body started to hurt. I don't even know what. Like, it didn't even occur to me that it came from food. I thought, like, I'm dying. I don't know what it came from. I never had an experience of such a whole body pain before. But coming back to standards, right? When you have those high standards, like in Germany, you don't even need to think in these terms. It's just there. And yes, some people find, being things are too strict, or, too much effort, or whatever kind of things, but it keeps you safe. In terms of this, it keeps you safe. And when it's a normal standard, like, you don't question it. In Germany, you don't question that you clean everything every 10 minutes or whatever kind of thing, to keep everything always, on the high hygiene levels. It's just how it is. And so this is one of the beauties that I've learned to appreciate, where, like, once you got yourself to just be a certain standard, whether that's for food, hygiene, whatever, when you be that, you don't question it. It becomes who you are, and it's natural, and you can release so much pressure, effort, worry, whatever, that's causing you to drain so much energy, because it's there. It always works. Same for fitness. I don't need to plan something when I work out here or there. It became a part of myself that I need to work out. Like, I'm getting nervous, anxious if I don't do it. Like, my body will force me to do something again, and it keeps me on a certain level, always on a level where I'm being able to perform on a much higher level than most people can, based on what my observation on going on hikes and stuff. And for me, it's just standard. I don't need to push myself, force myself to do anything, because it's who I am. And this is where I see the power and those standards, and why I appreciate so much more Tony's message now. I don't know. How do you see this?
Yeah, the standard is so important, because your standard will determine the quality of life you're gonna experience, isn't it? I mean, for
Absolutely.
right, for example, I mean, I think he used the terms, Tony used the terms of the thermostat, right? When we have a certain standard, which is, like, either we're gonna choose to live a life that is not as our potential, right? So and we have that standard, and we're trying to go further, and and then it's gonna pull us back, right? It's gonna pull us back, which is like, oh, I'm functioning as like 40-degree right now. Oh, it's too much, and we got scared, pull us back. And the same thing for you as well, right? When and for all of us, when we don't live at our standard, and we have that high standard, right? We go down, we're gonna be pulled back up again. Right? As you were saying, you're gonna feel like, oh no, it doesn't feel right, so we pull ourselves back. So that is how important standard is, right? And for me, I have a standard on my physical body, right? Strength, and the speed, and the flexibility too. So when I don't work out, or when I don't practice for just a couple of days, I already feel like the weakness in that. When comparison to many others, I'm strong, which is, for me, it's kind of like hard to imagine, because I have a different standard as well, right? And the same thing with facing challenges. For me, is for example, I like, oh yes, let's do that. And then, and depending on our environment, right? Some people would say, like, really? And for me, it's normal. And I'll bet it's the same for you, right? And for many of us, we have a certain standard that we live up to, and that standard is kind of like our character, the place that we return to, and and when we build up our habits, right? And I see many of your video, which is really amazing, as those habit building become our character, right? The choices and our destiny. So yeah, that is just such a fundamental, such a powerful piece. So thank you for sharing. You remind me of those
Yeah,
views. I love
and thank you for pointing that out, because I find habits are the key to this, to develop this, right? I mean, I wasn't born this way, and I didn't even know back then when I started my whole journey that I would become this kind of person. I just focused on creating habits, creating healthy habits, because I was so unhealthy. I was super shy. I didn't, communicate well in my relationships. I didn't exercise. I ate really badly, and it affected my health. So I wanted the things to change. So I took responsibility, made the decision to raise the standards, right? Developing the habits, and it just over time became who I am. And I shifted now to just going straight to the identity part of it, because now I know. But this is such. I really love that you pointed out, because this is so important. And like for everyone here listening or watching this, um, if you want to get to this level as well, start with building habits. Choose something that you want to do, and then build up to it again every day, every day, every day. Making the decision, keeping that stand on, having this intention in mind helps a lot. And you get to a point where you don't need to rely on motivation, because you operate from a different thought pattern. As you said before, like as you think, you do; as you do, you have. And so instead of like, oh, I'm not feeling like this today, you're like, no, this is who I want to become. This is me. I'm fucking doing it. I'm not questioning it. I don't need to like, oh, maybe later or maybe no, I'm just doing it now. I do it. I feel great about it. Celebrate myself. Moving on. Nice. Perfect. We're making it so simple. The whole I find you waste so much more energy thinking yourself into excuses and trying to justify things than just fucking doing it. You're wasting more time. Like, and I actually tracked that for myself. I spent more time back then thinking about how I could get myself out of this than I just doing it. And like wasted, like when mental power, willpower, stuff like that. This is where it got wasted. Instead of just like, no, I'm doing it now. Even if I don't feel like this, I'm doing it now. Whatever period it takes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And then after this, I feel good about it, which is what I didn't realize back then. Because your brain will reward you for it, even if you don't like it. Your brain rewards you with happy chemicals because you took the action, which is also something that I'm utilizing now that I know it. Even if I don't feel like it now, after it, I'm gonna love it. And I felt it many times, for instance, with Wing Chun. Back in the days, came from the bakery, 13-hour day, felt completely exhausted and tired and just wanted to lie in bed. But my Wing Chun class was coming up, and I had to drive 45 minutes to get there, 45 minutes back, and we had like 90 minutes training. And so they reduced my sleeping time to like 2 to 3 hours, right? And so, of course, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is insane. No, I don't feel like it there. But what did I do? Got my stuff, went into the car, drove there, blasting the music along the way. So I'm, pumping myself up. But after the session, and sometimes I was there, I was tired. But along the way, meeting with the others, you're moving your body, getting in tune with yourself again, and releasing the stress that you build up at work. After that, I was so thankful to myself that I did it. And that's the difference. And a lot of people telling me now, and this is something that you brought up, what did you say, but people telling you like, oh, you're so disciplined, or you have so many things, and I'm like, really? I didn't realize that. Like to me, I want more discipline, right? But this is then when you raise your standards and you're living those standards, you don't even realize that. Like I needed other people to tell me what I actually do to realize how far I've come. There's such a power in living your standards.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I love when you were sharing that, right? You say, yeah, what do you who do you want to be? Like where do you want to go, right? What do you want? I think you mentioned about it. Because when you know what you want, right? Find out, like go into the journey at least. and then find that role model. It could be, Tony Robbins, could be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know. I don't care, right? Whatever suits you the most. Or Rambo. Hey, just some figure, and finding out and use that as an anchor for you, right? And for you to move forward to finding out or figuring out or training the habits that you want to have. And like, and at the end of it, I really love what you're sharing about I don't remember exactly what you shared, but it reminds me of what is it that that you will be, your future self will be thankful of you doing right now, right? Because even though you don't feel like it doing it, what is it that your future self will be thanking you, like after, before, after? Oh, you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
So I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing it out because this really ties back into the thought pattern, right? And I love how you started this basically today with like, as you think, so you do, as you do, so you have. Always comes down to the same thing. And I find the same is true. And I really would want to make sure that we talk about this point because, holiday season is coming up, relationship troubles are coming up. Statistically, in some countries, the season of love is the season where most people um, uh, not get divorced, having breakups. And so there's definitely something wrong. And so I wanna get into having the standards in your relationships. Like whether that's your intimate relationship or with your family or with friends, I think it's very important to first of know your standards, to communicate them, and to enforce them. So what I'm talking about here is boundaries in your relationships. Because basically boundaries are the standards you're holding for yourself, the safety guard for your mental, for your emotional well-being. And I find it's very important not to, it has nothing to do with being mean or something like that. Because when you think about the reason why we often, and I talked it out this from my own experience. If it's different for you, please share it with me. I'm very interested in that. But for me, the reason why I tolerated behavior in relationships was because fear of rejection, insecurity about myself, those kind of things, right? So fear was dominating my behavior. I tolerated behavior that I didn't like, which then at the end just led to a whole relationship that didn't work out. While when I identified that and I set standards or boundaries for myself in that relationship, started communicating them and enforcing that as well, this is when things changed. And at the beginning, it was scary. I felt like, oh, I don't know, what would they say about it? What would they think about it? But communication here is the most important part. Communicating this helped me in so many ways. Where like whether it's in the intimate relationship, where like some toxic kind of habits that the other person might have, just communicating. Hey, I noticed this thing. Not sure if you're aware of this. To me, it creates this and this. And sometimes it was a problem I actually had to work on because it triggered the trauma that I had. Sometimes it's something they didn't know, and it was based on the trauma they experienced in the past, right? But opening this up, open communication without judgment is so important for this. And then with enforcing, I don't talk about like, hey, we talked about this, you shouldn't do this. No. What I mean by that is, hey, remember when we talked about this and we kind of, set the limit here? I think we're overstepping this right now. So I don't know what's your opinion. Having like we just have having an open conversation about this without judgment, without things. So I'm using the word enforcing, but I'm using it because I want to make sure that you actually hold this boundary, keeping the standard. And so same happened for me, for instance, with friends, where like I was back then, was in the friend circle where alcohol was a normal thing, always was part of every meeting that we had, was just part of society we grew up. But I wanted to get rid of that. I wanted to completely cut out alcohol from my life, and so changing my standard towards this. But I was scared to be rejected from the group. People wouldn't like it, say something about it. But I just followed my own practice. So I set the standard, I communicated it, and I communicated it so well that everybody didn't just understand but they were actually proud of me making the decision, communicating this openly and vulnerably with them. And some of them even reached out to me and said, like, actually, I would like that too. And so we could then even support each other on this journey. So you never know actually what's happening when you address the elephant in the room. So much can happen, but most people are scared to do this. And so it all comes from having those standards, setting the boundaries, and communicating them. I don't know. Do you have any experiences like that for your relationships?
I really love that, that the standard and also our, well, we call boundary, right? And what things should not be crossed. For a long time, I really did not grow up understanding the boundary part. And much later in life, I will understand it in a way that, you know, our standard for ourselves and also the boundary that we set for ourselves, right? It's practically linked into, the existence of self, because as we exist in this world, we have the right to have things that we like and we don't like, and we can communicate it in a very, very, how do you say it, uh, interpersonal way, right? In a way that is non-judgmental, in a way that, like at our place, and literally being open and being free in that way. And that part has been for a long time very, very, very much of a challenge for me, as as yeah, a very interesting experience. And so I really love that you have that we have that, um, about the boundary. As long, I noticed that many people struggle in this way too, by the way. They either being judgmental, or unable to contain their emotions, right? Or they hallucinate things and then taking that as the truth, and then they communicate that as if it is the truth without like opening for debate. You just this that, or I just that, and then that's the end of it. And it really is a shame, because in that way we lose a lot of opportunities, we lose a lot of chances, open doors for our future. Now, of course, it depending on on where we are, right, and what we want in life. And I remember back in the day when I started the journey, my bestest of friend, I literally told them, this is a mere coincidence, I think. I told them from the bottom of my heart that, guys, I really, love you guys, right? Because I know you for like over a decade, because it was like very long time. And I also know that, this is a journey I have to take, right? And even if I have to let you go, right? I still have to, but know that it doesn't mean that I love you any less. So, and it was due to some things that I did not like, right? And communicating in that way, it's like, it's opening for debate. It's saying what I believe in, what I valued, and I love them. And it doesn't mean I love them anything less. And the same for my mom, right? For my family. And I communicate in that way. So open your door, right? Staying, being vulnerable, being truthful to ourselves. And it's not an easy task. Right, of course, that is one of the moment I success. Right, many others I will fail, of course. And but throughout the journey, right, we learn, and whoever meant to be in our path, they'll stay, and whoever isn't, then, well, like we are here for whenever they are ready, if they decide to be ready, right? On Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying that, because this is such an important point. Because sometimes along the, especially when we choose to raise our standards, changing how we live or what we do, sometimes we have to let go of people, and it doesn't mean that we love them less or that they are less people or anything like that. It's just simply you're moving a different path, and that's okay. Like, I have many relationships that I had to let go of, but it's not like, we ended in a bad way. It's just we accepted that we went into different paths. We still love each other, still, send messages, sometimes here and there, but just going a different path. And it's okay to let go of relationships, especially when they are no longer aligned with who you want to become, where you want to go. And you will also find that along the way, there will be new people coming into your life who adding towards this life or this person you want to become. And I think this is a very, very important part to highlight it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I would even say the same is true for business. Like one thing that I've realized where so many people use, the spray and pray approach. They just add random people to their network and just posting, value posts all the time, getting stuff out and hoping that somebody, would stick. It's like throwing the noodles against the fridge and hoping one would stick. And this to me doesn't make sense at all. Like there's the quality missing, there's the standard missing. I'm more like choosing the standard, knowing exactly what you want, who you want to target, addressing this person, creating content for this person, not for me, not for everybody, for this person, so that they actually know what you're talking about. They feel like you know them and they reach out to you, which solves so many business problems on my part. And because I sucked in DMs, I sucked in on sales calls, and so this changed the whole dynamic because I didn't need to fix anything about myself because I did all the heavy lifting beforehand and made them come to me. And the same as like the standard I'm holding for myself of who do I want to bring into my network, right? Same for relations. Who do I want to bring in or keep in my relationships, in my social circle? Who is someone that contributes to it, and who's someone who actually brings me down the wrong path? Because same thing when you work with clients, you don't want to have a client that doesn't follow through, that doesn't take any action, because it's not fun for you. They don't get the results that they want. It's just a waste of time for everybody. You want people that are action takers. They come to you, they trust you, they do the work, they take the action, and you're working together with them. And so same with relationships again, but like, when you want a better body, you want to get into better shape, you want to quit alcohol, eat better, and you start maybe going to the gym and you're making connections there and you're having people that are working on themselves, you can learn from them, you can help each other, support each other, motivate each other, right? Giving different, recipes out. I don't know, I'm just rambling here a little bit, but just to give an understanding that the whole relationship part and the standards around it works everywhere, whether that's in your personal life or in your professional life. And I think this is very important to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important, isn't it? And the clarity. Remember, guys, the clarity come from when you take actions, right? When you walk the path. And as a kid, when we journey in on this earth, we're not gonna know who we are exactly, right? And as we go and we explore further, oh, so I like this, oh, yucky, I don't like that. And the same thing in business as well, right? And in personal life, in business, in whatever aspect of life that we journey through, we discover, we find out. And the reason how you were able to get here where you are is because you're able to take action. You decide, right? And you take action, massive action. And you should check out uh, Coach Heiko here, his profile on Facebook, and you see all the things he do. Like amazing, amazing. I really love it. And
Same for you, brother. Same for you. I can just give the compliment back.
yeah, yeah, and take actions, guys. And remember that you are not alone, right? Remember that many has walked your path and many has already succeeded. So all of us are in the middle of a journey. And wow, you got this. You really do. Yeah,
Very well said. Very well said. And
yeah,
yeah, it really comes down to action. And um, it really reminds me, like I see a lot of people who like, I mean, clarity is super important. Clarity is like one of the most important thing. But I see a lot of people getting stuck in clarity. They're like, oh, I'm not clear enough, so I'm researching more, or looking for more information, or looking more here, but they never get into action. Where like getting into action, getting real time feedback and data would actually give them the clarity that they need. And so, thank you so much for sharing that. which is basically same coming back to the beginning and also my takeaway for today where like you had this problem, you had the stomach flu, the event was coming up, but you made a decision, you took action, and based on that you shifted your focus. You had this, we remembered what your friend told you about, going to a different location, which then led you to completely using different resources that you didn't even think about before. The clarity came from making the decision and taking action. Wonderful example. And so that's why this is my takeaway for today. Now I'm curious, what is yours?
I really love that. I really love how you put everything together in that way. Yeah, I really love it. I didn't think of it, but you are right. And for me, the takeaway will be, the standard. It's not just gonna be about your in one aspect of life. It's about in every other aspect of life. In this life, what is it that you're gonna make your standard? And it could change later, right? But don't make it lower than yesterday or the day before. You either raise your standard or you don't, but don't lower it because the feelings is gonna give you not very pretty. So thank you for that takeaway in many aspects of life. Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that is a very, very important point that we shouldn't underestimate. And so I'm curious to you guys. What was your takeaway from today? What are the insights, the stories that maybe popped up, the questions that you got? Like anything that came up for you, please share it for us in the comments or send us a message because it's very important for us and we want to co-create the space with you. Also, if you would like us other kind of topics, then please share them with us as well. With that being said, I hope you got a lot of value out of this session today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Until then, remember who you are.
and remember the power of creation you possess. All right, guys, you got this. Go out there and crush it. All right. Okay, guys. See you next week.
Take care.
All right. Bye bye.